Let's sculpt a sheep using Model Magic. Begin with a ½ ounce of Model Magic. This piece will become the body for our sheep. Knead and condition the Model Magic and then roll it into a sphere. Turn the sphere into more of a cylinder shape by rolling back and forth using the palm and fingers of an open hand. Don't press too firmly. Just a few rolls, maybe 5 to 7, should be enough to get the form we need. Then place the piece to the side for now. Now let's make a color that's going to be used for our sheep's wool. This color is going to be a pastel shade that's made by combining some white Model Magic with a color Model Magic. In this case, we're going to use blue. Since I'm not 100% sure of how much we're going to need of this color, I'm going to start with just a 2/3 ounce of the white and a little bit of the blue, and then knead that together by squishing and blending and kneading the Model Magic. At first it's going to look a little bit marbled, but I want the color to be completely combined. If I run out, I could always make more later. To get ready for a later step, I'm just going to add some white glue into a plastic cap because we're going to use that later to attach the wool to the sheep. The sheep's wool is made up of many small Model Magic spheres. What we're going to do is take the Model Magic that we mixed with the blue to make a pastel shade, and we're going to rip off small pieces, and then using our palms of our hands, we're going to roll as many spheres as we can get from that piece of Model Magic. The spheres don't have to be all the same size. In fact, it is perfectly fine if they are slightly different from each other. Now that we have a supply of spheres, we are going to attach them to the body of the sheep. And what we're going to do is use the white glue almost like it is a slip for the Model Magic. Now, Model Magic does stick to itself, so you don't necessarily have to use the glue, but the glue does provide some insurance just to guarantee that the pieces don't fall off eventually. I like to start at one end and just place one small sphere and then work around that sphere. So first starting with one in the middle and then placing them around it, almost like the center of a flower surrounded by flower petals. And then as you keep adding them, you keep going further around the existing spheres that you've put down, and then keep covering the entire piece of white Model Magic. It ends up kind of looking like corn on the cob, actually. Since I've run out of spheres, before I finished covering the sheep's body in these wool or fleece spheres, I'm going to mix up some more of that pastel color and rip off and make some additional small spheres so that I can finish the task of covering the sheep's body. I also need some extra spheres left over because those are going to get added to the sheep's head, and another piece is actually going to be used for the sheep's tail. If you have been keeping track, we are now up to about 1 ounce of the white Model Magic mixed with just a little bit, maybe 1/4 ounce of the blue to make that pastel color for the sheep's wool. Now it's time to make the sheep's head, so we're going to use the blue Model Magic. I have about 1/3 ounce here, and I'm going to cut off just a small amount to set aside to make the ears, so that's about, I don't know, about 1/3 of the third, I guess, gets set aside for the ears. And then the remaining larger piece, we're going to knead that and then roll it into a sphere. And then using the same technique that we did for the body, we're going to rock back and forth to make it more of a cylinder shape. Remember to compare the size of this head cylinder to the body you've already made to make sure that it's not too big or too small, because you can always adjust the size by taking away or adding more Model Magic. For this next step, we need our toothpicks. Our toothpicks act as bracing to help us secure the pieces together. So we're going to take a look at the body that we've already covered in spheres and make a decision about which end do we think maybe looks less nice, a little squished or a little flat, because that end is the end we're going to want to partially cover up with the head. The other end, the end that looks better, we want that to stay visible to be the tail. Add some glue to the end that you're planning to put the head on. Remember, the glue is just extra insurance to make sure things stay stuck together, just like the bracing. And then you're going to insert the toothpick directly through that glue, leaving just about 1/4 of an inch sticking out. Once you've done that, you're going to position the head over the toothpick so that it is perpendicular to the body, and just slowly wiggle it and push it down onto the toothpick until the head piece touches the body piece. Now let's make some ears for our sheep. So we're going to take that piece of blue that we set aside and just take a small amount of that, then roll it into a really short cylinder. From that short cylinder, you're going to cut it in half so that you get 2 ears. You don't have to make both ends round. The rounder end is going to be the bottom of the ear, and the flatter end is going to be the top of the ear where it attaches to the head. You can do a little bit of shaping to make sure that they are both somewhat flattened and approximately the same size, and then you're going to need a toothpick, which you're going to break in half because the ears are small. You don't need as big of a piece. So what you're going to do is apply some glue to one side of the head where you want to put one ear, and then press the toothpick into that, insert it in, leave just a little bit sticking out because the ear is not very thick. You don't want the toothpick to pop all the way through the ear, and then slowly position one ear over that toothpick. Then do the same thing to the other side. Where it attaches to the head, you can smooth it out a little bit using your fingers and thumb. With the head and ears now attached, you can add some additional wool or fleece to the top of the sheep's head using the same technique that you did to attach them to the sheep's body. Just take some of the spheres that you already made and dip them into the glue and then place them on the sheep's head. Don't put them too far down over the sheep's face because you need to leave room for the eyes later. Of the remaining spheres, choose the one that is the biggest. That is the one you're going to use for the tail for the sheep, but the sheep's tail isn't perfectly round, so you might want to shape it a little to make it more of a triangular shape on one end, and then apply glue where you're going to put the tail. Insert half a toothpick just like you did for the ears, and then wiggle the tail in place. For the sheep's legs, you're going to need about 1/3 of an ounce of the blue Model Magic. If you want to use the scrap that you had before, you can combine it with some Model Magic from another pouch, but you want to knead that together before you portion it. Once it's been kneaded together and combined, you are going to want to portion that piece into 4 approximately equal pieces to make the 4 legs. Once you have the 4 pieces, you're going to roll each piece into a sphere. Compare your spheres. If one of them or 2 of them or any of them look bigger than the others, you can use your scissors to trim off the excess. Once you have rolled your pieces into spheres, you're going to want to shape them into more of a gumdrop shape. To do that, you want to hold the piece with a pincher grip from your fingers and then just sort of tap them on your work surface while rotating and turning them until they end up looking more like a gumdrop. Now you're going to add a dot of glue on the top of each of those gumdrop shapes, and then insert half a toothpick into each of the tops of the legs, and then from there you're going to position the legs on the bottom of your sheep and press them in carefully. The toothpick does have a tendency to try to poke through the bottom of the foot. Just be careful that you don't have it poke through too far. And then once you have the legs in place, you're going to want to make sure that your sheep can stand on its own by tapping it gently on the table to make sure the legs are all in the right place. Now you can add your sheep's face. We're going to start with the eyes. For the eyes, you're going to need a very little bit of white Model Magic. You want to roll 2 small spheres to make the eyes for your sheep. Once you've done that, you're going to apply some glue on the face where you're going to put the ears, just like you did when you applied the wool, but you can use the glue bottle for this so that you have a little bit more control, and then position each sphere onto the sheep's face and flatten it a little bit with your thumbs or fingers. Then use a tool, whatever tool you can find. This is a wood skewer. You're going to make the pupils of the sheep and then use a permanent marker to color them in black. Once you've done that, you can also now add the nostrils and the mouth for your sheep. And again, we're going to use the wooden skewer. The pointy end is perfect for pushing in those nostrils. And then you can also very carefully carve in a smile on your sheep.